So hi Joe, tell us about the dish you're going to prepare today for our Saudi friends and members, please.
I'm going to make you a really tasty dish which is called Black Cod with miso, and it's a dish that became quite famous from Nobu restaurant. It was one of their original signature dishes, and if you've been there and tasted it, it is delicious. If you haven't, then you have to give this recipe a try because it's very, very easy to do and a really good recipe to do if you're having a dinner party but you don't want that last minute stress. Now, black cod is this, so it's a very dark skin. It's got a white, sort of creamy white flesh. It's very high in omega-3, making it very healthy, but also it's quite high in fat, so it will hold its shape together really well for marinating and for cooking. I got this from a specialist Japanese supermarket. There's many dotted around the country. If you can't have access to one of those, some fishmongers will be able to get hold of it for you if you give them enough warning, or you can order it online. However, if you can't get hold of it, a good alternative is to use standard cod and just get a nice thick piece of cod fillet, or even sea bass. I mean, any white fish works, but they're the quite sort of nice ones which will take on this marinade nicely for a dinner party. So that's the sort of cod in itself. The recipe I'm doing serves 4, so you would need 4 cod fillets. I've just got 2 here just for sort of showing you how it all works. But what you need to do is take the fish and just salt it. So just add a twist of salt onto both sides and leave it for about 5 minutes. And doing this, it draws out that excess moisture from the fish itself, helping it to absorb more of the marinade flavour. So you just need to leave that while you prepare the marinade. Now, the marinade is based on miso. Now, miso is a soybean paste. This is called white miso. It looks like peanut butter. It doesn't taste anything like peanut butter, but you can get hold of this in all supermarkets generally. And then you just want to add to that about 100 grams. This is mirin. This is a sweet rice wine. Again, it's available in supermarkets. It's in with all the oriental sort of dressings and soy sauces. So add that to there. It's quite syrupy in texture. We also have some rice wine or sake, which is based on sort of an alcoholic rice drink, and you can either use the cooking one, which is fine for this, so that's again in with all the soy sauces and things in your supermarket, or you can actually buy a sort of a bottle of it in with all the wines. And if you're going to actually plan on serving sake to drink, then just take some of that to use for the marinade, and that was 50 millilitres. So you've got 50 millilitres of each one of those, and then 50 grams of caster sugar. So really straightforward. So the marinade itself serves 4, but you could really easily increase it if you were cooking for more people. So just double the quantities if you were going to cook for 8, or decrease it if you only wanted to cook for 2. But the marinade itself can be made days in advance and sit in the fridge, so you could always make double and then it's there for another day. And then just mix it together. I'm using a little whisk that will break down those sort of lumps in the miso paste, making it really nice and smooth. And then also doing this, it will just make that sugar dissolve into the liquid really quickly. Now, take the fish, just pat that dry, remove that salt and moisture. There we go. So it doesn't really need any longer than about 5 minutes for this. And then you're ready to marinate it. Now, it needs to marinate for about 24 to 48 hours, so this really is a well-prepared dish, so you don't need to sort of panic last minute. And if you've got one of these little sandwich bags, it's better to use one of those for marinating because it is really handy just for popping it in the fridge. It takes less space in the bowl, and you also don't need to keep turning it in the liquid. So pour this in here, but one thing you do need to do is reserve about 2 tablespoons of that mixture, pop it into a separate bowl so you remember, because this is the sort of sauce for serving. It's a nice little dressing. It's very intense in flavour, so you don't need a lot. But do make sure you reserve some of that back. And then just squeeze out all that air. The air will just make it easier to put in your fridge really. If you've got loads of air in the bag, it's just going to be taking up more space. And then just turn the fish ever so lightly in the marinade, just so it's all completely evenly coated. And then pop it in your fridge. So 24, 48 hours, depending on how long you've got and how organised you want to be. And then it'll just marinate and the fish will take on all that really lovely, sweet, salty, tasty flavour. And the old classic saying, here's one I have, ready prepared. This has been marinating for 24 hours, this one, so it's taken on a lot of flavour, and you'll see the texture of it. It's firmer. It's sort of the acidity in that rice one. It started to cook the fish a little bit, so it's really sort of slightly rubbery compared to when it was raw. So that's ready to cook. So at this stage you can probably had your starter, all your friends are still having a good time. You now sort of need to think, right, it's time to cook the main course. So you get your fish from the fridge and then you're just ready to cook it. And I'm going to grill it instead of frying. Frying is great when it comes to some dishes, but I think for a dinner party, you've got a frying pan on the hob, you're trying to fry things and people are coming in talking to you. Something that can go under the grill makes it really easy and straightforward to do. So this one is a grill dish. It takes 5 minutes on each side, so not long at all. Just pop a bit of oil onto a non-stick tray. I could use vegetable oil or olive oil or sunflower oil, it's entirely up to you. It's really just to stop the fish from sticking. Just rub that around there. And then take the fish, and this is quite an important thing that you need to remember. You don't want to have too much moisture on the fish because that will just burn. You want to have just enough to coat it because it's got all that flavour in them from the marinade, and then just place it onto your tray. Now I know the dish is called black cod, but the name is from the fish, not from the fact that you're going to completely char grill it until it's black itself. So just scoop off that excess marinade, just with the fingers. As easy as that. And then pop it onto your tray. It doesn't matter which side down, I've done skin side down, but you could do it the other way around. So long as you give it about 5 minutes on each side under the grill. Now obviously the fish is the star of the show, you don't want to take anything away from that. But it's nice to have something with it. I quite like serving rice with it, so you could do some lovely steamed basmati or some Thai rice. You could do noodles, which is nice, so you've got that sort of fish and the carbohydrate. Or if you wanted to keep it really, I guess a lighter, sort of more simple dish, serving it with some form of greens is really nice. So you could get some pak choy or some broccoli or even some stir-fried kale or something. And I'm actually going to do some tender stem broccoli and just toss it in some sesame oil and soy sauce to sort of time the Asian flavour. So while that's cooking, that's when you can prepare your side dishes. So that's obviously the hero, but to serve with it, I'm going to do some very delicious tender stem broccoli. You can do any sort of green vegetable you want to, but I think this is really nice because it has the long stems and it looks quite stylish on the plate. You could use pak choy or even any sort of stir-fried Chinese greens or spinach. I'm just going to steam this, so pop it into steamer. So while the fish is cooking, put your vegetable in and then just let that steam for a few minutes just to take the initial rawness off. It wants to still have a little bit of bite to it. But just enough for it to just have a nice sort of softer texture. So while that's steaming, you've got nothing to do. You can go and chat to your friends, have another drink, or just do a little bit of washing up. But to be honest, it's best to save that till the morning. Right, so let's just check this fish. Smells amazing. Now that's actually had slightly longer than 5 minutes on that side because it wasn't colouring quick enough. Because it's had longer, I actually don't think I'm going to need to turn it over because it's cooked both sides. Feels, you can be very careful and touch it, it feels like if you press slightly, those flakes are about to sort of break away, which tells you that the fish is cooked all the way through. So I don't need to turn this over, and I'm just going to leave that to rest just for a couple of minutes while I finish off with the broccoli that we're serving with it. And the smell in the kitchen is just gorgeous because it's got that slight acidic flavour from the marinade, so it's sort of really gets your taste buds going. Now, get your cooked vegetable. I'm going to season this. You can season it just with some salt, but to sort of stick with this oriental theme that is going on. Just pop it into a bowl and then add a trickle of sesame oil, only a little bit because sesame oil is really strong. You don't want to go too overboard, and you've got a lot of flavour coming out of that fish. And some soy sauce. So instead of salt, just use some soy sauce, just over the top. And then just turn very carefully. You can do it with your fingers if you've got asbestos fingers. You ask most chefs that they have. Over years of practice, you end up being able to pick things up that are really hot. And then I'm just going to sprinkle some sesame seeds over there as well, which have been lightly toasted just until they're golden brown, just for a nice little crunch, and it just looks really nice and pretty as well. And then you're ready to serve up. And this is the time when you're doing your dinner party, you might feel slightly panicked, but it's always going to be the case. You want to serve your food hot to all your guests, A great tip to do is actually make sure that your plate's warm, so if you can stick it in a sort of a low oven, if you've got a low oven, or even in an airing cupboard. If you've got an airing cupboard, then just wrap them up in a towel and sort of stick them in there. It will help retain the heat in all the food for a lot longer. And whenever you eat out in any restaurant, they will always have warm plates if you're serving warm food. Let's just stick some tender stem with the soy and the sesame oil and sesame seeds on your plate. So don't pile it too high. It's nice to keep it looking simple and stylish. You can always offer any extra vegetables as a side dish if you want to, but I think the whole key to making your food look good on a plate is to keep it simple, and it makes it beautiful and the flavours will still be there. So then I've put the nice little green veg just to one side, leaving me enough space to put the fish, and taking a palette knife and very carefully just sliding it off. Now it shouldn't stick, because it's a non-stick tray, and I also put that bit of oil in on the top, and it's a very oily fish itself as well. So just carefully place it next to the broccoli, but leaving a nice little gap, because you may remember I saved some of this marinade, and this is the sauce that you want to serve with it. Now, you don't need much. It's a sort of a presentation as well as a flavour thing, this is. And if you want to try and be clever, you can do some little dots on the plate, just very gently with a spoon. Or you can just sort of spoon it over the top. And just tidy up. And when you are serving up to any of your guests, depending on what you're serving, but a really good tip, make sure you always have a damp cloth to hand, because if you make a mess over the side of the plate, just give it a little wipe with a damp cloth, and then it looks really beautiful to present to your guests. And there you have it. It's a really tasty black cod with miso, which I think has shown that it's actually very simple to do and very stress-free, and will wow your guests at the best of times.